Shalom and welcome to Jerusalem Studio. Recep Tayyip Erdoğan's second-round presidential election victory was neither a surprise nor a landslide. He was widely expected to win, yet almost half of the Turkish electorate showed its displeasure by voting for the opposition. Erdoğan now has a renewed popular mandate, but he must navigate carefully the stormy seas of inflation and international relations. What courses is he going to chart for Turkey when he starts a term which may mark more than a quarter century in power for him? For more views and some explanations on Turkey after Erdoğan's re-election, let us turn to Central Israel, where we're joined by Dr. Eytan Yanarocak, who is a research fellow at the Moshe Dayan Center, Tel Aviv University, as well as the Jerusalem Institute for Strategy and Security. Thank you for joining us, sir.
Thank you very much for having me.
It's a pleasure. Also joining us from Ankara, Turkey, is Mr. Ömer Özkizilçik, who is a foreign policy and security analyst. Thank you for joining us as well, sir.
Thanks for having me.
Indeed, and as ever, our TV7 editor-at-large and host of Watchmen Talk, Powers in Play, and so much more, Mr. Amir Oren. Amir, give us a broader understanding of the current framework in which we're going to delve into this topic of interest.
So the Turkish voters have made their choice and have voiced their preference, and they will have to live with the consequences. Obviously, there are domestic issues because Erdogan's first priority and responsibility is to take care of his people, of the very populous country, an important country straddling Asia and Europe. But we here, as well as other observers abroad, are also, or perhaps even more interested in what is going to happen in the national security and foreign policy domains. So now that Erdogan is in power, he doesn't have to be as militant as he was during the campaign. Actually, two campaigns, before the first round and then the next 2 weeks ahead of the second round. He can be more moderate vis-a-vis the migrants in Turkey. He will not be more moderate, obviously, against the Kurdish terror organization PKK, but he may have some, we will hear from our experts, have some agreement or modus vivendi with the Syrians or perhaps the Russians in Syria. He will be more forthcoming towards NATO's Sweden accession. And the most intriguing question for us here is whether his rapprochement towards Israel, which started almost 2 years ago when the Bennett-Lapid government took power, but is still going on as we speak under Netanyahu, whether we will see it going up to another level.
I think just a couple of weeks ago when the Deputy Foreign Minister of Azerbaijan visited Israel and partook in the Herzliya conference of the Institute for Policy and Strategy at Reichman University, he highlighted, of course, being the Deputy Foreign Minister of Turkey's closest ally, that Erdoğan, in his perspective, is a thinker. He's a strategic thinker that understands long-term strategy. Also, when we're talking about Israel, this is something that he understands the added value for Turkey for this relation. Nevertheless, when we're initially talking about this election, it does seem that there's a lot of resentment towards the Turkish leader, who has been in power for quite some time now, with entire generations, of course, not knowing any other leader except for Erdoğan. Dr. Cohen Yanarocak, when I look at his wording utilized after the victory, of course, the election victory, he used, at least from the translation I received from Turkey, words of trying to put aside all the debates and conflicts regarding the election and unite around our national goals and dreams. What are those national goals and dreams right now?
Well, first of all, I just want to mention that I a little disagree with you that he tried to unite the society. In the very first lines of his speech, he already emphasized that his party is free from the LGBTQ community, and he also, in a very derogatory manner, tagged other political parties of being affiliated with the with the LGBTQ community, and I think this is very unacceptable if you would like to embrace all of your people after such a fragmented and polarizing campaign. So I do not think that it is serving to the interests for rallying your people around the flag after such a campaign. So the Erdoğan administration launched many different projects, as we all witnessed during the campaign. He many times highlighted the need for a Turkish energy independence, and therefore he said that the Turks found new natural gas resources in the Black Sea. Besides that, we happened to see a new Turkish fighter jets and many other, and also let us not forget this controversial Turkish made in Turkey car named TOGG. So we happen to see like a sort of a rain of projects during this election campaign, but I do not think that the Erdogan's constituency really voted to him because of these projects. I assume that these people are supporting the president like they support a football team. They are very loyal to him, and as a result, I really don't think that these kind of grandiose projects made the difference. I also would like to add another important factor here. Many people in Turkey they refrain from making this point because it may not be heard politically correct. But Mr. Kılıçdaroğlu's religious faith of being Alevi, in my opinion, played here a very crucial role. Because at the end, if you would like to become a victorious party in this election, you have to steal some votes from the other camp. And I sincerely don't think that as an Alevi president, as an Alevi candidate, he can steal votes from Central Anatolia's Yozgat province, for instance, or from Eastern Anatolia. Of course, many Turks became liberals. They are civilized people in the western side of the countries. They are liberal. Yes, they do vote. But I think most of the people still cannot change their codes of thought. And that is why in universities we teach the history of the Middle East. You cannot basically divorce from the concepts like Sunna, Shia, Alevism, right? When you are basically analyzing today's politics, you should also take them into account.
Indeed. Well, I do have 2 points to interject about. I think at the opening speech, what he said about the LGBTQ values that the European Union and the United States in particular are trying to promote all over the world are not consistent, neither with Turkish society, historically speaking, nor with the Islamist party, and any Islamist or Christian party in the West, for that matter, that adopts those values and norms, lies to itself and to its constituents because it is not aligned with what they declaratively believe in. And secondly, about the liberal values, I'm not so certain whether the Enlightenment has necessarily to do with the liberal values, particularly in Turkish education systems, but this is for another topic maybe that we should discuss more thoroughly. Mr. Oskizilchik, I saw you grin from time to time about particulars. I'm curious to hear your voiced opinion on these matters, as I'm sure that Dr. Yanarocak as well. as Mr. Oren here are very keen on hearing your perspective on this.
So let me first of all start with the issue of the Alawi sect of Kemal Kılıçdaroğlu. So first of all, we have to underline here two facts. The first is the previous Sunni candidate, Muhammed İnce, he got much less votes than Kemal Kılıçdaroğlu. And the one before him, who was also a Sunni candidate, he got also much less than Kemal Kılıçdaroğlu. So speaking just from a percentage point of view, Kemal Kılıçdaroğlu got almost the vote of half of the Turks. And this could not be possible if the people would oppose his Alevi identity. Now, I also do not have seen and emphasizes by Erdoğan or the pro-government rhetoric and propaganda which would underline his Alevi identity. On the contrary, it was Kemal Kılıçdaroğlu who emphasized his Alevi identity, and I think it helped him to a certain degree. But here, in the end of the day, the people who did not vote for Kemal Kılıçdaroğlu did mainly not do so due to different reasons. And the most important of them is the political alignment of the Republican People's Party with the pro-Kurdish and the PKK affiliated or aligned Green Left Party. And this was the main issue why the people in Yozgat did not support Kemal Kılıçdaroğlu for his president candidacy. And secondly, if we look at the election result outcome, there's also this very interesting dynamic that the AKP got 35% of the votes, while Erdoğan got more than half of the votes. So this shows that there is an discomfort of the Turkish people with the policies of Erdoğan, and they did not support his political party as they did in the past. In the past, the AKP alone would get 49% of the votes. It decreased massively. But Erdoğan, he maintained his vote counts. And he managed to surpass the 50% threshold. And I think the main reason for that is that the opposition was unable to be a real alternative. And I think here the real question should be not put on the people's fanatical support for a political party. Yes, there are people like that. It's 35% in the AKP, 25% for the Republican People's Party. These will not change. And then you have 8-9% for the pro-Kurdish Green Left Party. These will not change. But then they have people who are in the middle, and they decide over the future of Turkey. And these people who are in the middle, they could not be convinced by the Turkish opposition. And also, for example, the people in the earthquake region, the region which were affected by the earthquake, they supported Erdoğan even more in the second round than in the first round. And the main reasons for that is the people who were hit by the earthquake region, they have seen that while they were trying to survive and they did not know about their future, the opposition was in an internal battle about who would become the president candidate, and they forgot about the people affected by the earthquake, while Erdoğan was announcing housing projects and recovery projects in earthquake region. And from the first to the second round, we have seen that people supporting the Turkish opposition have vehemently criticized the people for their electoral behavior and said that they cut off their support for the people and their aid for the people affected by the earthquake. And this politicized, I would say, smear campaign against these people have increased Erdoğan's vote even further. So I think it's time for the Turkish opposition to question itself, because after 21 years in power and the COVID-19 pandemic, the war in Ukraine, the economic situation in Turkey, and the overall change of generation in Turkey, we have 5 million new voters in Turkey. If the opposition is not able of winning elections, then I think the main issue is the Turkish opposition. The Turkish opposition had two other candidates, namely Ekrem İmamoğlu and Mansur Yavaş, who would have performed likely better than Kemal Kılıçdaroğlu, but it was the Turkish opposition who did not make them the candidate. And so therefore, the election result in Turkey is the making of the Turkish opposition and their mistakes and their failures. And if you allow me, let me come also towards the position of reconciliation with Erdoğan and
very briefly, please.
Speech. Erdoğan, let me just say one sentence here. He already started his political campaign for the municipal elections next year. So he was campaigning on the balcony speech already.
Very interesting indeed. And of course, we would like to hear also Dr. Cohen Yanarocak's response to that. But
just 2 points.
Please.
following up on Chai Eitan's soccer metaphor regarding the fans rooting for their home team, we here in Israel, when we grew up, I shouldn't say, but not too long after the middle of the last century, we used to know about three Istanbul teams in particular, Fenerbahce, Galatasaray, and Beşiktaş. Right. And to hear Chai Eytan, one would have thought that one of those has been at the top of the league for the last 20 years or so. But the last time I looked, which is when you three were talking, Fenerbahce was only second spot, Beşiktaş 6th, and Galatasaray 13, middle of the table. So there are possibilities for new forces, new teams, of course, with some foreign players, like we had Chaim Revivo at Fenerbahce. Now, Erdoğan, now that he's 21 years in power, first as prime minister, then as president, much like Vladimir Putin, had the same road. Now that Erdoğan is looking ahead, what sort of imprimatur does he want to leave? Just being in power is fine, it's better than the alternative, but he should be aspiring to do something more, especially that this is the 100th year of the Turkish Republic, of Atatürk's great achievement, following the Ottoman defeat in World War I and the dissolution of the empire. So it can go either way. Either he will try to do something which we will consider negative, much like Putin and the Ukraine war, or he would like to act as a global statesman. Perhaps he himself does not know the answer yet.
Indeed. Well, we have roughly 10 minutes to deliberate that question, but initially I'd like to hear Dr. Cohen Yanarocak's response, and if you may also then continue into the point, what implications does this victory have on Turkey's foreign policy?
Sure. First of all, I agree with Mr. Özkızılcık that especially in the earthquake regions, people tended to support Mr. Erdoğan more. But we all know that in the area of Kahramanmaraş and its vicinity, the people are very, very conservative. So for me, at least, it's not a surprise that people still supported Erdoğan. And also, let us not forget, Mr. Erdoğan launched their new construction projects. So many people, the earthquake victims, they really believe and convinced that only Erdoğan can deliver them their new homes. And because of the economic deterioration, a new opposition government, which may suffer from inefficiency, maybe could not deliver their homes. And as a result, we happen to see that the vast majority of the people, apart from the Hatay province, in the earthquake zone, they voted for Mr. Erdoğan. And apart from that, I again agree with Mr. Özkızılcık regarding the identity of Mr. Kılıçdaroğlu, that he lacks charisma. Including the last election, Mr. Kılıçdaroğlu was defeated in aggregate 6 times by Mr. Erdoğan. So for me, from the beginning, it was a very illogical decision to declare his, candidacy. And I would like to highlight here that the Turkish İYİ Party leader Meral Akşener, she also warned about with this kind of probability. So this should also be emphasized. And then she was almost crucified at the center of the city, right? Because she was seen as the one that almost crushed the entire alliance. And regarding your question about international relations and Turkey's foreign relations, First of all, I would like to refer to our bilateral relations with Turkey. I do not think that we will see a drastic change in Turkish government stance vis-a-vis Israel. We already overcame 2 Ramadans. We already overcame numerous tensions in the Temple Mount. And let us not forget, only 2 weeks ago, we had a very serious escalation in the Gaza Strip, and we also overcame that. The Turkish Foreign Ministry only issued a very traditional condemnation against the state of Israel, and Mr. Erdoğan, despite the fact that he was at the very top, he was at the very middle of his election campaign, he refrained from criticizing Israel as he did before. So in my opinion, it is saying a lot that we are not going to see a very severe diplomatic crisis in the future. I also would like to make a point here regarding a trilateral relation between Israel, Azerbaijan, and Turkey. Israeli President Herzog this week visited Azerbaijan, and Azerbaijanis just recently inaugurated here their embassy. I also hosted Mr. Rezaev at the Jerusalem Institute for Strategy and Security, and also at the Moshe Dayan Center at Tel Aviv University. He delivered lectures in these 2 institutions, and let me tell you, the sky is the limit. Azerbaijan can act as a platform, as a cement between Israel and Turkey, and let us also put this fact on the table. Israel, Turkey, and Azerbaijan, they are constituting together a very strong party against Iran. Okay, so this is very crucial. Regarding Turkey's relations with the West, Joe Biden recently congratulated Mr. Erdoğan, which is a very sharp U-turn for the US president. We remember how during his election campaign, how he made statements against Mr. Erdoğan. So I think that it must be very embarrassing for Biden. Regarding Russia, Turkey and Russia, they do proceed to deepen their relationship. We are seeing that the Russians are building the Turkish nuclear reactor in Akkuyu, Mersin. It means that almost a marriage of 50 years was signed here. Turkey's interdependency is growing. Turkey needs to pay its debt to Russia. I'm talking about almost $20 billion of sums of money that Mr. Putin waited until the end of the election so that the first installment could be paid. So in a way, it was a sort of an intervention in the Turkish elections, because if
Indeed.
Putin insisted in receiving those payments, so the Turkish economy could have deteriorated in a very grave situation.
Well, Mr. Ozkizilchik, I'd like to hear your perspective as well. You have roughly 3 minutes tops for your analysis.
Okay, let me say that I firstly agree with Mr. Yanarocak that Turkish-Israeli relations will continue to improve, and I agree with him that the sky is the limit here. Especially the war in Nagorno-Karabakh has shown what Turkey and Israel can achieve together. It was the Turkish and Israeli drones who played a significant role in this war. And there is a new development. The Interior Minister recently announced on Turkish state TV that the PKK terror group has relocated its headquarters from northern Iraq, the Kandil Mountains, to northwest Iran, the Kuma Mountains. And that the PKK leadership is located in this region now, that they are in a safe haven in Iran, and that Iran denies their presence there. If this continues, and the Turkish-Iranian relations will deteriorate even further, and we also know that there are much tensions between Iran and Azerbaijan, which will also enhance the Turkish-Israeli relations. And even this, without the Iranian angle, Turkey and Israel have many things in common. I think the Eastern Mediterranean will be a new topic on the agenda, high on the agenda in the coming period. But when it comes to the Turkish relations with the Western countries, namely the United States of America and the European countries, I think the Western states would have accepted the reality that Erdogan is going to stay for another 5 years, and they have to come into terms with Turkey. The Turkish position is very important now. It's more important than it was in 2018. They need Turkey, and therefore they will try to enhance the relations and improve the relations. We have seen this also from the German Chancellor, who has invited Erdogan to Berlin. He wasn't in Germany for a very long time. And in terms of Russia, I can here underline that the Turkish-Russian relations will likely continue in a similar path as they are now, but it will depend on the United States of America how much the US is interested in cutting off or limiting this relationship due to the Ukraine war. And the key for this is Syria, and I don't see a political willingness in Washington to answer the two Turkish demands in Syria. If the American position changed in Syria, many things are possible for Turkey in terms of changing its attitude towards Russia. If not, Turkey will continue in its complicated relationship with Russia.
Indeed. I think one anecdote was very important here, and this may indicate a certain course of collision between Turkey and the Islamic Republic of Iran, and that is the Iranians hosting the PKK, the Communist Workers' Party of the Kurds, who have been fighting Turkey on multiple fronts. To what degree do you see this as not only a big deal, but something that should be focused on in the near future?
Yes, this is obviously one issue where Israel can contribute, as it has in the past. Intelligence, even though Israel is aligned with other Kurds, this is an important security cooperation issue.
Indeed. Well, we'll delve into this in the near future. I'd like to thank Dr. Cohen Yanarocak, Mr. Ozgizilcik, and Mr. Cohen for partaking in today's panel. I'd like to thank all of you at home as well. Until next time, from here in Jerusalem. Shalom.